Project Echo coordinator. Always happy to help you if you have any questions. Thank you.
Miigwech, and I'm Kari Robbie. I'm a family practice and addiction medicine physician here at NAC. It's good to have you all here. So I'm going to go ahead and start the slideshow. So today, here's our agenda for today. Donna already gave us the prayer and land acknowledgement. I'm doing the introductions and agenda. I'll be going through Zoom guidelines. Michelle will be doing the announcements, and we're happy today to have Linda Black Elk with us. She's going to be talking about plant medicines and the treatment of opioid use disorder. Dr. Grain from Hennepin Health is going to be doing our case presentation, and then we will close. As far as Zoom, I think we're all very familiar with Zoom now, but you can please introduce yourself in the chat, your name, title, organization, and email, so we just know everybody who joined us today. And then also you can update your name on your screen. You right click on your little Hollywood square and you can rename yourself so people can see who you are. We do like to see you, so if possible, please turn your camera on so that we can see your face and know who we're talking to. It just helps the conversation flow better. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. We may mute your microphone for you. We're not being rude, it just helps everybody to hear better. And then use the chatter hand raise function for attention. And of course, as always, no protected health information should be spoken about. I'm gonna turn it over to Michelle for the announcements.
All right, so as always, remind you that we meet on the first and third Wednesday of every month at noon Central Standard Time. Upcoming sessions. So in April, we're going to be talking about tapering benzodiazepines with Dr. Helen Wood. She is from Hennepin Health. And then on the 21st, we're going to talk about gabapentin. And that is with Laura Wilhite, who is also from Hennepin. There is a buprenorphine waiver training for those of you who are interested. So it's being offered free through Hennepin, and it's on April 15th. You can contact Elizabeth Ryan at hcmed.org if you want some more info about that. Case presentations, when time allows, we want to go through and discuss clients or clinical questions, things like that. So you're encouraged to send in anything that you want to talk about. Also, this would be a way that you can let us know topics that you're interested in learning more about. There is a specific form that can be filled out at the Hennepin Healthcare website, or you can just email me directly at mcorcoran@nac-healthcare.org. Go ahead, next slide. Do we have anything else? Continuing ed. I'm not sure if we have continuing ed being offered today. Generally, if we do have continuing ed being offered, you'll get an email with a link for a survey. You fill that out, and then you get CME or CEU credit for that. I know somewhat related, maybe not. We are in the process right now of getting our recorded sessions onto the NAC YouTube channel. I know several people have asked for the PowerPoint slides, and they're too big to email. I've tried to email those out to folks. We'll get those up on the YouTube channel. Watching the video, though, you do not get CME or CEU credit. Just an FYI.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'm gonna ask Linda Black Elk to share to start her presentation, please.
Okay, I don't know why it's not letting me actually start the slideshow here. Maybe if I right click or something.
If you go up to slideshow, did you do that? Go to slideshow and say start from beginning?
Yeah, the bar's in the way. Does anyone know how to get that out of the way?
You should be able to just drag the bar.
I moved it. I never knew you could drag the bar after this entire year of doing this almost every day.
Always learning.
Yep. I learned that kind of in a similar situation. So.
Wow. Awesome. Okay. So it'll be coming up here in just a second. Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Black Elk. I'm the Food Sovereignty Coordinator at United Tribes Technical College. So honored to be here today. And I want to be clear first that I am not a physician. I'm an ethnobotanist and I work with plant medicine, but I've also worked with a lot of people who are experiencing addiction, and that's been a really long journey. It all started with my brother. I'm the youngest of three, and my brother is a recovering, he's in recovery and from opiates. And yeah, we got him actually off, we got him clean without using any methadone, Suboxone, synthetic opioids. That's not everyone's journey, but this last time, of course, there had been many times before that, but this last time he decided that he didn't want to take that path, and he chose a different one, and it was the path of plant medicine. And it's worked very well for him so far. And so I actually took that. That was, 7 years ago now, 6 or 7 years ago. And I took that model that I sort of formulated through working with him, and I started using that model for other people who were experiencing addiction. And it's worked really well. I guess I should start off by saying that one of, and this, everything I'm going to say comes from my own personal experiences and that of working with a lot of people, and also talking to elders and things like that. So I mean, I have, of course, read the literature and things like that, which I'm not necessarily providing for you today. But if you have questions on how I came up with or where I came up with certain ideas, please feel free to ask. And I'd love to have that discussion or provide some papers for you. So I guess I start from a place where choice is super important, right? That's the place that I start from. I think with all the people that I've worked with who are experiencing addiction, one of, they've sometimes felt very forced into one particular recovery pathway. And I really believe that a variety of choices, particularly for Indigenous people and people of color, is so important. And so, I believe that's the best way to reduce harm, is by giving choices, whether it's, having the option of going to ceremonies, someone they can go to talk to about that. Plant medicine used by itself, or plant medicine used in conjunction with MAT. Herbal medicines, at food, even, having advice on what kind of foods, the nutritional deficiencies that are often experienced. I probably don't have to tell you guys, but the nutritional deficiencies that are experienced by those who are in recovery are sometimes just absolutely astounding. So giving them all of these options, all of these choices, and seeing them as whole people, who need that sort of help rebuilding their lives from the ground up is so important. And having all kinds of choices, I believe, is super important. And so with that, I usually like to start off, when I'm talking about plant medicine and the treatment of OUD, I like to start off by talking about plants that are actually used to treat pain. Because my brother, for example, he was in the military and he was injured, and that was the beginning of chronic pain that he still experiences. And that really led to his addiction to opiates. So he and I have come up with numerous plants that he can use, plant medicines that he can use to treat his pain. So I always like to start off by talking about some of those first, and I'll try to go through this quickly because I know I'm not the only person who's going to be visiting with you guys today. But by far, one of the best medicines I've found to treat pain, even really, really terrible pain for my brother. He actually broke his ankle in the desert and has pins in his ankle. And so he experiences constant pain, terrible pain there. And I've found that white willow bark, specifically white willow bark, there are other species of willow that are useful in treating pain, but I've found that white willow bark is really just one of the best medicines. I keep some of it on hand all the time. And I've used it for everything from a headache to my brother's pain from his previous injury. And I've found that it works very well for people. The other thing I found, I myself am allergic to aspirin. And as you know, willow bark is one source of aspirin, but I'm not allergic to willow bark tea. So I can drink as much as I want as an anti-inflammatory, and I won't have, the allergic reaction that I have to over-the-counter aspirin products. So willow bark, amazing. And I do prefer it as a tea. I will say, I love teas, okay? But we can't all carry around bags of tea all day. I understand that, so that we can make them everywhere. If you travel, it's often not advisable to carry around little bags of green plant matter. I've done that before and been stopped and had it confiscated. So, you can use willow bark as a tincture, and that is useful. Tinctures are often, though, made with alcohol. And so if you're trying to avoid tinctures that are made with alcohol, you can actually make a willow bark oxymel. And I'm happy to give recipes for that. But an oxymel, I'll just say, is similar to a tincture, right? So it's an extract, but instead of using alcohol as the medium, you use vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and honey, and it's good and it works wonderfully well. But again, I prefer teas, but I find that they're just not as easy to travel with. If you know someone who's experiencing a lot of pain, you can actually have them make a thermos full of the willow bark tea in the morning. Maybe after they've had their cup of coffee, you can make them a thermos full of tea, and they can carry it around with them and drink that throughout the day. So, and please feel free to interrupt me with questions while we're talking about particular plants if you have questions. Okay, so another plant that I use to treat pain is stinging nettles. And anyone who knows me, I've probably talked to Donna about this before, and I don't know if my sis Sarah's on, but gosh, I talk about nettles all the time. And, they're one of my favorite plants, but their ability to treat pain caused by inflammation is just incredible. Whether it's arthritis, whether it's a pinched nerve, the anti-inflammatory effects of stinging nettles are well known throughout the world, and have been utilized by indigenous people for that purpose for millennia. And I mean, used by people all over the world for that purpose. So the nice thing is you can eat them. So you can make what I call like anti-inflammatory pesto, for example. Nettles I don't know how many of you have ever come across nettles or had an experience with them, but it is an experience because they come by their name very honestly. They do sting. And if you look really closely, I'm sure you guys can probably see my arrow. But my little pointer arrow, see those little tiny hairs there along the stems and petioles of the nettle plant? Those little hairs are pretty stingy. I've actually heard this plant called burnweed in Minnesota, because if you brush up against it, it's just kind of a feeling of like, ow, what just happened there? But the way that I view this, and as you all probably know from working with people who have experienced addiction, healing is often painful. It is. And one of the things I hear the most from really from elders who have been working with medicine for a long time, from healers, from indigenous healers, is their frustration that people expect healing to be easy, and they just want a pill to cover up pain, and then they just want to move on with their lives. I find that healing, it can be a sort of a painful and difficult process, right? Whether it's healing from trauma or healing from an injury. Nettles are a perfect example of that. It's almost like, and I hate to anthropomorphize, but I do. I view plants as being sentient and communicative. You know, for me, it's sort of like nettles are saying, you know what, I'm going to help you. I'm going to heal you. I'm going to give you long-term healing. I'm not just going to cover up symptoms, but it's going to hurt a little bit. I'm going to sting you. and that's just sort of like, you know, the gift of nettles, really. And so they do sting, but with any crushing or drying or cooking, that stinging effect goes completely away. So you can pick those, like those young nettle leaves on the left-hand side of the screen. That's what they look like in Minnesota right now, or in about a week or so. They're starting to pop up through the ground. And that's, for me, when they're the tastiest and the best. I was always told that if you pick nettles barehanded, which we do every year, you'll never get arthritis in your hands. So we go out, we harvest them barehanded, and then we blanch them quickly, you know, just 15 seconds in boiling water. And we make all kinds of dishes out of them. We freeze them for later, but we make pesto, we make noodles, all kinds of things. And you can, of course, make beautiful tea, nettle tea. And you can make a nettle and willow bark tea that's anti-inflammatory, that helps to relieve pain, all kinds of pain, you know, with different causes. So that combination is fantastic and very, very safe. And also very nutritive. I'll talk a little bit just for a moment about food as medicine later. And nettles are, I think, a really valuable part of that. They have more protein than almost any other green plant in the world. Protein. So they're, of course, they're great for people who don't like to eat a lot of meat. But, you know, if I remember when my brother started to get clean, he really couldn't stomach a whole lot of food and or good food, I suppose. And so I would make broths for him with nettle leaves in there, dried nettle leaves. And that was a really, really good for him. And so, you know, you can even, you know, just throw some of the leaves into some soup, and it's almost like you're having this infusion into your soup, and it's wonderful.
Real quick, Linda, somebody asked if you could just state if you happen to have the botanical name for the plants, if you could tell us what that is.
Yep, absolutely. So, sorry about that. So, yeah, sometimes I forget who I'm talking to. So, white willow is, of course, Salix alba, alba meaning white. And then, of course, Urtica dioica. There's a species of nettles growing in the southern US. I don't know if that's of interest to anybody. And it has the same medicinal properties, and it's Urtica andresifolia or something like that, but very, you know, easy to find and also equally medicinal. Not and this might be why someone was asking, but this is not the wood nettle, which is Laportia canadensis. This is stinging nettles, okay? Urtica dioica. So just some more just common things like those are a couple of her traditional medicines. They grow locally all over Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, et cetera, and even further east. But I just wanted to throw out just some things you can grab at the grocery store that are also really effective anti-inflammatories, great for treating pain and you know, helping with that. You know, these are all just super common things. And the nice thing is that these can be incorporated into someone's diet every day. I didn't even put them all on here. You know, I have cloves on here, but I didn't put like the cinnamon and the star anise on there. You know, so I always say you can really hide a lot of beautiful anti-inflammatories in a bowl of pho. Right? So if you, I mean, I talk about medicine soup all the time and give talks about medicine soup, and you know, all of these, including the cinnamon and the star anise, can be used in those types of soups as well, and they're very effective. And actually, there's wonderful literature on the use of a lot of these foods in treating pain in the long term. Okay, I sometimes I feel weird about using the word withdrawal and the words withdrawal symptoms, but that was something that ended up being really the most difficult time of my brother's life was when he was getting clean. Let me rephrase that. The most difficult times of my brother's life has been when he has been getting clean, and those initial couple of weeks are just horrendous. And he would just be so sick and so weak, and it was just such a terrible time. And so we came up with, and I'm so lucky, that I've been able to use this particular tea blend with, gosh, a couple hundred people now. And I feel like we've really perfected it. But one of the ingredients in the tea that I use, which helps to kind of flush the system. I'm not a big fan of the word, there's a word that people use for teas that they say, are cleansing. But what I feel like is like for dandelion, for example, even though it's been much vilified by lawn owners everywhere, it's an amazing food and an amazing medicine. And it really, it's a powerful diuretic as well. So it really does help to sort of flush the system. And if there's, swelling or excess liquid in the limbs, some edema going on, dandelion root tea is just a fantastic tea for that. So I use dandelion root and the next two plants that I'm going to talk about in one tea for withdrawal symptoms. And I'll tell you, I've never seen anything like it. You can use it with any of the other, the nice thing is that you can use it with any of the other medication, this tea blend, with any of the other medications that your patient might be using. So, if they're using methadone or Suboxone, that's fine. They can still be drinking this tea as well. It really helped to cut down on the shaking and the nausea. And also it's very nutritive. So we would just basically, you can get dandelion root, clean dandelion root as a tea. If you're in the Minneapolis area, you can get it at present moments, but I'll be honest with you and say you can get a box of dandelion root tea at Walmart. I've made my neighbor kind of famous because I'm always very dismayed by her. She goes around her yard spraying all the dandelions in her yard with Roundup. She owns her own little Roundup backpack that she carries around her yard and sprays her lawn with it. But then she goes up to, because she has liver issues and dandelion is wonderful liver support, she goes up to Walmart and buys organic dandelion root tea. I've never really understood, that view, but it's really it really is wonderful liver support, but it's also really wonderful just to sort of clean a person out, and it helps to, of course, it's considered a cleanser, like a blood cleanser. Okay. I also, to this tea blend for withdrawal symptoms, I add Burdock Root, which of course also grows all over Minnesota and all over the Midwest. I love gathering burdock in Minnesota because the leaves get dinosaur huge. I mean, they are, you can find 5-foot leaves that look like massive palm fronds in parts of Minnesota. And, so out here in the Dakotas, we just don't have that kind of moisture. So the burdock is much smaller. You can use the leaves or the root. I personally prefer the root. It's stronger and it does have more of the medicinal compounds. They're concentrated in the root. But this is another one that's considered a blood cleanser, and it's actually been used not just by indigenous people of North and South America, but by traditional Asian medicines. Like, it's used very commonly in traditional Chinese medicine and in Japanese medicine, and even in Korea as a blood cleanser as well, just to help flush the system. So I mix the dandelion root and the burdock root with yarrow. Yarrow. Oh, I keep forgetting to say the Latin names. I'm so sorry. So of course we know dandelion, pretty common, Taraxacum officinale. And then the burdock, let me just go back for just 1 second, because I think that's important. This burdock is Arctium minus. There's also Arctium lapa. Arctium minus is actually native. Burdock is considered kind of an invasive plant, something that's not native, but that's not true. Arctium minus is the native species. Arctium lapa is the introduced species, but they do readily cross. So sometimes it's hard to tell, and it doesn't really matter. They both have wonderful medicinal compounds. So I just use them kind of interchangeably. But that's what that one is. And then of course we have the yarrow, as I said, Achillea millefolium. It's if you're Ojibwe, I love the Ojibwe name of this plant, Ajinamuzo, which is squirrel tail, and you can kind of see the leaf there. It's like this bushy sort of leaf that curls over, and it does resemble a squirrel's tail. If you're Dakota, the name of this is Taopi Pejuta, which means wound medicine, which is perfect for it because it is a powerful blood coagulant when used externally. So if you, and some of you guys have heard me tell the story about this plant and my cousin cutting his leg open with a foot-long wound on a barbed wire fence. We use this plant to stop the bleeding. And it's amazing because if you crush this plant up and put it on an open wound, it will instantly stop the bleeding. It's absolutely amazing to watch. But this plant has also been used by cultures all over the world. And when I say that, listen to the scientific name. When I say it's been used all over the world, think about the scientific name, Achillea, right? Who's it named after? Achilles, right? And that's because it's this plant is mentioned numerous times in the Iliad. Achilles used this plant way over, in the ancient over there in what was that, ancient Greece, Sparta, to treat the wounds of his soldiers, the people who were fighting with him. And it's been used that exact same way. It's also indigenous to this continent. And it's been used that exact same way for the exact same reason by people over here. In fact, I went to a conference where they said it's used, it grows on almost every continent, except of course, Antarctica. And it's used for similar reasons throughout its range. So it's a powerful wound healer. But also it's used internally for those same reasons. I will say you can make delicious yarrow fritters if you eat fried food. You can actually take the flours and mix them with like your fry bread dough. I try to only limit fry bread to like once a year, but you can make beautiful yarrow donuts. Sprinkle a little powdered sugar on there, and have that. They're edible as well. But so it's an amazing medicine. So those three plants, the dandelion root, the burdock root, and the yarrow leaves and flowers, I mixed together to make this unbelievable tea that I really feel like changed the course of a lot of people's recovery. It's that tea where at that critical time when they're feeling so sick and they're feeling so desperate and they're just feeling so horrible, this tea just really helps. It's like a refresher. It's like a reset button. And I've had a lot of luck with it. I will say that there are other plants that you can use, things that are very common where you grow, where you live. All of these grow where you live. I assume most of you live in Minnesota, and these, grow out here as well. Most of them are indigenous plants. The licorice root, Glycyrrhiza lepidota, in the top right-hand corner. Glycyrrhiza. That's an amazing plant to use that I use a lot in teas and for these symptoms. Because something else that I noticed is that there's a lot of congestion in recovery. I feel like there's a lot of rattling in the chest, at least with the people that I've worked with. And licorice root really helps to help to clear that lung congestion up. But I will say that licorice root is not good for people who already have high blood pressure. It can, in people who already have high blood pressure, it can actually raise blood pressure more. So that's the licorice root, the Glycyrrhiza lepidota in the top right-hand corner. In the top left-hand corner there, Anise hyssop, a Gastiki Phoniculum, is a fantastic plant. It's very, very traditional medicine for Ojibways, Lakotas, Dakotas, people all over North and South America. If you taste it, it tastes exactly like a black jelly bean. Now, that is so weird for people. If you've never had it before, you chew on the leaf and you look around like, does anyone else like think that tastes exactly like black licorice? It does, and has a powerful flavor of black licorice. But if you have someone who, through their withdrawal, is experiencing extreme nausea, the Anise hyssop, and then the Mentha arvensis, the mint in the bottom left-hand corner, that's the wild mint, grows all over the roadsides and along stream sides all throughout the Midwest. And then, of course, the motherwort. All of these are wonderful for helping to calm the stomach and to help with nausea. Okay. And of course, I wanted to add some others in there that are easy to find at the grocery store as well, like rosemary, oregano, ginger, fennel. Wonderful for the diarrhea, vomiting, all of that. Okay. Oh, and I will say motherwort on the bottom right is like one of my go-to plants for anxiety and depression. I'll talk about anxiety and depression plants in just a second, but that's one. A lot of these plants, are so amazing because they cross those boundaries. They're not just used for one thing, right? Motherwort is amazing for, of course, new mothers. That's how it got its name. Great for postpartum depression and things like that, but it's wonderful for everyone who might be experiencing anxiety and depression. It's amazing. As someone who experiences anxiety, it's such a calming plant, and a great one to keep around. And then, of course, the mint and the in the bottom left, and which is Mentha arvensis, and the Gastiki Phoniculum in the top left, also known as Anise hyssop, beautiful for that. Motherwort is Leonuris cardiaca, scientific name. Okay, so just moving on to more depression and anxiety plants. This is something that even years after my brother had gotten out of jail and started to really change his life, he would still, one of his biggest triggers, and I know everyone has different triggers, but one of his biggest triggers was depression and anxiety. And so, he would start to feel really anxious and then start to feel like he wanted to use. And we came up with a really beautiful tea blend for him. Now, this is blue vervain, Verbena hostada. And it's an amazing plant. It's very traditional for all the tribes in the northern United States, throughout its range, really. And the way that I put the effect of this plant, because I use it often myself, and I have to tell you, it's incredibly safe, even for very young people. I use it for ADD, ADHD, and kids, who might be on the spectrum, and adults as well. The way that I put it is that, it has no, it doesn't make you sleepy. It doesn't, make you feel drowsy or high or anything like that. What blue vervain does is it you just feel like you're way out in left field, they say. It helps to bring you back to the center. You're just able to take a deep breath and say, you know what? I can handle this. It's going to be okay. And that's what it's been used for such a long time. And as you can see, it's such a beautiful plant too. So I love to keep it around in the flower garden and things like that. So I love to mix that depending on the level of anxiety or depression someone is feeling. I love to mix that with some passion flower. And there's excellent, extensive literature on the use of passion flower in the treatment of addiction and its use in recovery to help those who are in recovery to sort of get through those feelings of anxiety. And when it's mixed with the blue vervain, it becomes this beautiful, powerful, but gentle medicine. And it tastes really good too. You can use any part of the passion flower. I use the leaves and the stems just because there are so many, but you can, passion flower fruit is delicious. And you can use those beautiful, weird looking flowers as well. Passiflora incarnata. Some of you are like, oh, okay. So this is Skullcap Scoldalaria. And it's another one that, I have to say I use Skullcap a lot by itself because it's a pretty powerful antidepressant. I say antidepressant hesitantly because it's not like St. John's wort, right? I don't use St. John's wort. And let me tell you why. A lot of you have probably heard about using it to treat depression, but St. John's wort, there's a lot of literature that shows that people who might already be on antidepressants have very, very dangerous low blood pressure and dangerous side effects from the combination of St. John's wort and prescription antidepressants. So I don't use St. John's wort. I use Skullcap instead. It's super safe. It's very common, so it can be harvested sustainably, and it makes a nice tea, but it is pretty powerful. So often what I'll do is if someone really needs something strong, I'll start them on Skullcap. If it's not enough, I'll add some passion flower and then I'll add some blue vervain. But that combination of the blue vervain and the Verbena Hostada and the passion flower are beautiful just by themselves. And then if you need that extra boost, you could start giving the Skullcap separately and then add others as you go on. And of course, I never give someone a sleep aid to start off with unless they really desperately need it. And every once in a while, through the years, my brother, when he's experiencing lots of anxiety, I'll give him his anxiety tea, his blue vervain and passion flower, and he'll say, but I'm still not able to sleep. So that's when we start using some valerian root. Valerian, of course, does grow. It's a native plant. I've found that there are people, and this is why I urge caution for this one. I've found that there are people who can kind of become dependent on it. There's not a lot of literature to back that up. That's really anecdotal, but, and this is Valeriana officinalis. But there's a lot of people who, I would say, they start using it for more than a week and then they try to stop using it and they're like, I can't sleep at all, So I really recommend a small amount only for those nights, just put a pinch of it into your tea on the nights when you can't sleep. Okay. And of course there are others for that as well. Hops, a very traditional sleep aid for Indigenous people in North America in particular. I'm careful with this one as well, just because it can be very strong. I always say the first time I had a cup of hops tea, I couldn't drive for hours afterward because I was so sleepy. I kept nodding off. And it's wonderful. The other thing is hops, of course, are used, in this case, they're just used as a tea or a tincture or an oxymel, but they are used in the brewing of beer. So if you're working with someone who might have an addiction to alcohol or might be, a former beer drinker, it can be a bit of a trigger. The flavor of hops tea can be a bit of a trigger. So because it tastes like beer. Okay. Sorry, how am I doing on time? I'll I'll rush through. No, this is my last slide actually. So I just wanted to say that, nutritional deficiencies are well documented. Of course, I always recommend getting outside, going for a bike ride, going for a walk, going for a hike. And if you can't do that, if you live in North Dakota like I do, where it was -40 for a few weeks, a couple weeks ago, and there's very little sun this time of year. There's also a lot of literature. I don't have to tell you guys about all the literature backing up the use of vitamin D in recovery. But I really, really urge, almost all of the plants I talked about today are very safe, and a lot of them are actually wonderful foods as well as being wonderful as a tea. So, incorporating these into your everyday life is possible. When my brother had been an addict for so long that his primary foods were like ramen noodles, because he just got to the point where he didn't cook or didn't do anything. It was all fast food if he could afford it, ramen noodles and boxes of like macaroni and cheese, which he didn't even make with milk and butter. He made with water at one point. It was just really terrible. So he was extremely lacking in nutrition. And I found that if he kept eating like that, it was almost like his body was just like, you have got to do something. And it was like a trigger for him, right? Because he felt so sick from his diet that he would want to cover up that sickness by using. And so we really started to incorporate lots of lean protein and greens into his diet. We made medicine soup like 3 times a week, which would be different soups that I would put into quart jars, and that would be his meal for that day. When I say medicine soup, I'm talking, you can do chicken and wild rice, but why not put some oregano, rosemary, bay leaf, put some of the turmeric and things like that into the chicken and wild rice. And that's what we did. Or I'd make him chili, and I'd put, spicy chilies into the chili soup and all of that stuff, and started to incorporate a lot of these foods, dandelion root even, into, and medicinal mushrooms. I didn't even talk about mushrooms today, and the use of like a mushroom blend, which there's a lot of beautiful research in the use of like a reishi, turkey tail, chaga, lion's mane mushroom blend in its use in recovery from opiates. So so I just wanted to make sure that I focused on, and everything I've talked today is stuff that I do with the people that I work with, and stuff that I talk to them about, and stuff that I've had really great results with. So I'm honored that I had the opportunity to share all that with you guys today.
Miigwech, would you mind unsharing your screen and then perhaps people could ask questions?
Yeah, if you have a question, you can use the hand raise function, which I'm not even sure how to use that, so I can't tell anybody how to use it. You can, physically raise your hand and we'll kind of watch for you, or you can write something in the chat.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Graham, did you have a question? Or did he have to go? Oh, there he is.
No questions?
Oh, I've got a couple. Thank you so much. I took lots and lots of notes. For the length of brewing time for the tea, does it depend on the herb, or is there a standard length?
So there's a standard, it doesn't necessarily depend on the herb, it depends on the form. So what I say is that if it's a tough plant part, we call it a decoction. If it's a tough plant part, like roots or seeds or bark, you make a decoction, and that's where you actually boil the plant matter for about 10 minutes, and then you steep it for another 10. But if it's softer plant parts like leaves and flower petals and, like just softer plant material, then you make what we call an infusion. which is just, the plant matter, pour hot water over it, let it steep for 10 minutes, and you're done. I see. Oh, did you have another question?
Well, I think that last one, maybe we can wait till the end, because the last slide or two, I just wanted to catch some botanical names, but if we could do that at the end.
Oh, sure. Yep. Yeah,
Or,
that's
or
fine.
no, it wasn't that. It was what plant part to use for the last couple slides.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Maybe
I'll
we can do that at the end.
So yeah, so I do see that Erica is asking about resources. I don't know of any books or out there specifically on the use of plant medicine to treat OUD, but there are a lot of papers out there, particularly papers that have come out of India and China, because they tend to use a lot more plant medicine over there anyway. But yeah, there's a lot of papers out there on the importance of nutrition and things like that, the importance of vitamins and supplements and all of that. So, but I don't know of any books out there. And then I did want to say, Rika.
Thanks.
Rika. The hops at the end, Humulus lupulus, you use the flower, and then the valerian, you use the root. Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Hi, Linda. I had a question. I was just curious to know how your brother's doing now.
He's doing well. Yeah, I was worried for a little while because I hadn't heard from him. And if any of you have a person who's experienced addiction in your family, actually have trouble even still. I used the word addict for so long, and my brother did as well, that I've recently quit using it. I think language is so important. But yeah, so I think a lot of you, if you've had someone who has experienced addiction in your family, you know that when you stop hearing from them, you kind of get worried. And so I hadn't heard from him for a while. But I talked to him just the other day. And like I said, it's been, I think, 6.5 years now that he's been doing really well. And, I think one of the things that really struck me is that last summer, he went on the first vacation that him and his wife had gone on since they started using almost 20 years ago, the very first vacation. And they used to love to vacation before that. So yeah, he's doing really well. I appreciate you asking.
Any last questions?
Yep. So Brian's asking for some resources, some of those papers that I use, and I'm super happy to send those. What I'll do is I'll email them to Michelle, and then maybe she can email them out to anyone who wants them.
Certainly, that works for me.
Awesome.
Well, make which, everybody, we have 3 more minutes. And so sorry, Dr. Gray, and again, no case presentation.
Darn it. Sorry, I tried to.
Oh no,
Actually,
Linda, this is an ongoing challenge. Not unique to you.
So
But we love having you.
can I ask a few of the other ones where I don't think we got the plant parts, or maybe I just didn't hear them?
Oh, sure. Yep. Did you have specific ones?
Yeah, so the anise hyssop.
Oh yeah, is the leaves and the flowers. Sorry, yeah, the whole top of the plant for that one.
Okay, and the blue vervain.
Yep, is also the leaves and the flowers.
Okay, and then there was that one big slide for more herbs for withdrawal that had mint and motherwort, licorice, rosemary, oregano, ginger, and fennel. It's
Yep.
would that all be upper parts?
Yep, yeah, all the leaves and basically the parts that you find like in the grocery store, but also for the others that you might harvest wild or from the garden, I always just take the top of the plant. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks so much, Anthony. So good to see you.
You as
Sorry.
well. Thank you.
Meg,
You did an awesome job. You always do.
Thank you. I saw you across the parking lot at the clinic one day, but you were like running. I mean, I think you were literally running.
Oh, I might have been late for something. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Take care. It's good to see you.
You too.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Linda.
everyone for having me. It was such an honor.
thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And just a reminder,
Thank you.
our next presentation is on 4/7, and we'll be doing tapering benzos with Linda Wood.
And Dr. Grant will get to do a presentation.
Maybe.
Next time.
We hope.
Take care.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you all. Thanks. Bye-bye.
You're good.